Hello everybody, LJ here, it's me, and long time no shmee since we did a reading. Now, this was going to be a different story I was going to read, but it was a 2-hour long audio recording with my buddies, so that will come out eventually, so I decided to pick out something short for myself to read. And also, it's been a while since I've done one of these. And today I've picked out an interesting story, and this is by the same person that we did do the 2-hour reading of. And we are reading a creepypasta. Those are still relevant, I guess, but depending on where you look. Go figure, I guess. But today we'll be reading a creepypasta, and it's a remake, of something that I've done a reading on many years ago. And it's called Brum and the Madman Escape. This is a remake of a very old creepypasta called Brum Goes to the Junkyard, written by a common name amongst this channel, good old Reese, aka Bosher Blue, Mr. Reese 254, whatever he wants to go by, and I know the name will make people go, ah, witchcraft, ah. And I'm just gonna say this now, in his little defense, which people will not give a shit about, it's been done. And just to throw this out of the way, I'd rather pick him over Mr. Cool Blue. Because one has self-awareness and has acknowledged that he's fucked up, while the other one wants to act like a fucking Christian. Let's be real here. So, yeah, if you're reading this, Reese, you're more better than the man that wrote a story about Thomas encountering pregnant Sonic characters. You should have that achievement. Well done, bravo. Bravo. So we'll be doing a reading of Brum and the Madman Escape. So enough messing around, we'll just start reading. I've always considered myself proud to look back on a lot of nostalgic kids' TV shows from the UK. And while a lot of people can have their fair share on shows like Wallace and Gromit, Bob the Builder, and of course Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, the one show that always sticks out to me was Brum. There's just something about this show that always gives me memories whenever I see that little car go on his adventures in the big town. While I do like watching the 90s era, I will always remember the early 2000s one, because it was what I mostly grew up with. These days, while I still enjoy the show very much, if there's one thing that pisses me off, is the fact the company didn't reboot it once, with a CGI version of the show. That is just dull and boring. They rebooted it twice and just made it 10 times worse. Simply just making Brum a 2D cartoon and make him look like Putt-Putt's rejected cousin. However, I'm not here just to write to you all how much I hate the 2 reboots of my favourite show. I'm going to be writing down things about a lost episode of Brum I found in my attic. As cliche as it sounds, this episode was on a VHS tape with no labels. I knew I should have just ignored it, but being a guy who collects videocassettes to sit back and watch them for old time's sakes, from old classic Disney movies and of course, nostalgic kids TV shows, I decided to give it a look for myself. Although after watching this episode, I can see why this was hidden from me. From what I'd like to guess, this episode was made by a college kid who wanted people to be aware of the countless murders that have been going on around the world. But the video is just so dark, the kid was kicked out. And from what I'm about to tell you guys, I'm sure you'll find out why. And while I'm writing this, I didn't know what to do with the tape. So I decided to keep it somewhere safe, where no one would have to witness what I have to see. But anyway, onto what it contained. The tape starts off fairly normal, with the 2000s Brum intro playing, but just slightly slow in pitch. So far you'd think it would just be a simple episode, right? Well, that's when it actually started. The episode begins with Brum driving down the pavement, passing by people, and they waved hello to him. As this was going on, the title of the episode appears, which is called Brum and the Madman Escape. After the title faded, Brum stopped by a large factory and decides to go inside. That's when something felt odd. Right after the intro, the narrator was gone. There was no sign of Tom Wright or Sarah Witchhall at all. Anyway, that's when we see the story's villain, which we're going to call him the Madman. Simply from the title. He peeked out of the entrance and watched Brum enter, and smirked while holding a crowbar. Now, if you ask me, the show is always known to have many silly baddies in the show, but unlike them, the Madman seems to be the most menacing one, because he actually looks like someone who just wanted to kill Brum, judging from his crowbar. Back to the episode. Brum slowly looks around the factory, which despite the sounds of the machines going and all the broken up cars around the area, no one seems to be at work. The factory was completely empty, and Brum was alone. That's when he turns and sees the Madman. He looks down at Brum with a devilish grin on his face, and while still holding his crowbar, he points his thumb. He points at him and then draws his thumb across his neck, gesturing to Brum that he's going to die. Now, normally in the show, when the villains are stealing something or when things are getting away, Brum chases them down and saves the day. But in this episode, no. This time, in a very rare case, Brum starts to run away from the Madman, as the normal music plays. Further into the episode, that's when the things start to get disturbing. Brum had slowed down while hiding from the Madman, but that's when he noticed dry blood under a door. Brum looked in and then he saw 3 workers laying across the floor, who had long dead. He then noticed that the workers died almost the same way, which from crowbar to the face and not wanting to see any more of the scene, Brum quickly drives out of the room and continues to look for a way out. As he kept doing so, he watched a crane, which he assumed was on autopilot, drop the broken up car onto a shredder, which crushes it into pieces. Brum knew he needed to get out of the factory, but as soon as he found an exit, he sees the Madman jumping from a corner, blocking his path and slowly approach him, as he shakes his finger at Brum, telling him something like, "Did you really think I'd let you out of here?" He looks up at the man with his bonnet open and his headlights crossed, showing that he was angry while slowly backing away from him. And then turning away, he speeds off again, with the Madman chasing after him. Brum later sees a bucket full of water and knocks it over, making the Madman slip and fall straight into a broken car that was ready to be picked up by the crane. Making the Madman slip and fall straight into a broken car that was ready to be picked up by the crane. When the man realizes where he is, he begins to freak out and climb out of the car, but forgot how high he was from the ground, so he fell onto the conveyor belt, breaking his legs in the progress. Brum drives over to see the Madman begging to be saved. Now, I know the acting in the show can be a bit cheesy, but while the acting here is still so in this current situation, it feels like you're watching a silent horror movie. In fact, the entire episode makes you feel like so. Anyway, Brum continues to stare at the Madman, pleading to save his life. However, with what Brum had seen what the Madman did to the workers, he just backed away a bit and did nothing. The Madman's beggings turned into screams as he continued, till it was too late and he ends up in the shredder. His blood-curdling screams can be heard as blood then splattered out of the shredder and landed on the floor in front of Brum, a bit of it getting on his grill and bonnet. The screaming of the Madman kept on going, his bones crackling and his flesh being cut up, till the entire factory was filled with silence. The screen then fades to Brum finally exiting the factory, but then notices a sign on the entrance which displays the factory has gone out of business and is closing down for good. Brum was glad that he had survived, but felt sorry that no one else came out of the factory alive. While looking down at the ground with that thought, he starts to drive away from the factory if possible. While the camera pans over to the factory entrance to Brum driving down the pavement into the distance, before the tape finally came to an end, it cuts to the credits with Brum gets things done. But the entire screen had a red tint to it, the audio was demonic, had a bit of a reverb to it, and was playing in reverse. As the music was about to end, it slowly fades out till there was no more sound, apart from the buzzing on the tape. Then it cuts to the Ragdoll logo, but the screen was black while the drawing was white, and instead of a smile being drawn on the logo, it was a frown, and the copyright notice displayed, Ragdoll Limited MMV, in New Times Roman. And again, there was no sound, and the screen fades to black. Well, that was the end of the story. Well, it's better than the original. I don't remember that much from the original before you ask. The only thing I remember is Brum's there and he's dead. Whoops, he's dead. Like, to the point it stands out from The original feels like a entirely different story. Now, the premise is an interesting one, I will say that. Although, the one criticism I do have is the way the story's found. The story's found? No, not the story, I mean... The way the tape is found. The guy that finds it, he finds it in his attic. Like, it would make sense if it was like, he found it on the floor somewhere, whilst in public, or in a dumpster or somewhere. It would make more sense like that, but I don't know, in universe of the story, the guy came to the conclusion and be like, oh, this is made by a college guy. I mean, you could say possibly, considering we do live in a world where people obviously make replicas of props, and I've seen people making replicas of Brum. Like, I've seen 2 people now making replicas of Brum, and they're still being worked on. And the replica's like nearly 1-for-1 with the original, so shoutouts to the people that made the replicas. So the one thing I will give this some credit, at least there's no dead kids, or it's not stereotypical. Oh look, lost episode. Whoops, the main character's dead. Move on, please. It's just this guy who finds in his attic of all places, and I don't know why in the attic of all places. Like, I'm looping over, aren't I? God damn it. Like, it would make sense, obviously, if you found it somewhere else. And the one change I would do to story, and it would make you give it some credibility, is because the story just ends. Like, we don't know what happened to the guy that witnessed it. Where is he now? What does he do? Like, does he look into it where this originated from? Like, obviously, the origins of how it's made is kind of haphazardly. Like, it wouldn't make sense that, oh, it turns out that the person that made this used the actual Brum prop and stole it for his own thing, and is a well-known, I don't know what you call them, like those people that make quote-unquote art, and it's just weird shit. And I think one example I can think of is, it's another creepypasta I can't remember, and it was accompanied with footage of a guy dicking about with clay, putting on his face. I can't remember, but I'll put it up on the screen if I can remember what it was called. But as a whole, is this better than the original? Yes. Yes, it's more better than the original. And just for shits and giggles, I would say this is slightly a bit more better than Alfred 3. I'm going to hell for that statement. But I will talk about the Alfred trilogy in a future video, because I do have something interesting in mind. So yeah, I hope you all enjoy this reading. So, as for the 2-hour reading that I did mention, it will come out possibly next year, I'm not too sure, probably sometime in the future. Because it will take me a long time, because it's 2-hour recording, so yeah, hope you all enjoy this video, and yeah, have a good one. And if Bosher, and pun not intended, out of the blue finds this, I mean, it's better, it's good. And I'll say this though, I would rather take you over Mr. Cool Blue, because at least you have self-awareness and will actually fucking listen, I guess. I like him. Pretty sure if Mr. Cool Blue hears that statement, he'll fucking crucify me. Alright guys, I'm going. Have a good day. Goodbye.